my 18-year-old daughter, and I watched as my 25-year-old wife and boss Chastity loaded the last of her suitcases into the trunk of his car. He came to pick her up that Sunday morning because they had a meeting on Monday morning in New York. They needed to fly out that evening to be ready and on time for the first of many meetings designed to discuss the case with the opposing party before the mediation began. Chastity, after 25 years of marriage, was still a very attractive woman. At 5'7", she still looked slim, although she had gained a few extra pounds, as time does. She had black hair and emerald eyes, and her curves were still in the right places. She just turned 44 a couple of months ago. She was a woman who seemed built for comfort and was happy with her life. We got married right after high school, and I worked to pay for her university while I studied online. The years have been kind to her, and childbirth has not changed her appearance. As soon as she graduated from law school, we moved back here to be closer to our families. By that time, we already had 2 children. In her first year of practicing law, Julie was born. I stood there, looking at him with conflicting feelings. I have to admit, I didn't like the smirk that idiot had on his face. From the look in his eyes, he thought he had outsmarted me. His self-confident behavior irritated me. I was 2 steps away from beating him. I wanted to say something so badly, but I bit my tongue. He wasn't worth it, and the woman he was carrying wasn't worth it either. They were driving because, as Chastity had explained to us more than once, it was their last attempt to settle a big civil case they were working on before going to court. She was so focused on her plans that she didn't notice from my words that I knew something else was planned. The problem for me with them was that I knew it because a little bird told me, and that wasn't the only reason they went. That little bird I've never met. This came to me through a phone call where I was working. Her name was Louise, and she claimed to be Michael's wife. She wanted to warn me about what their plans were and why. They were on a connecting flight to St. Louis in an hour, and then to New York that evening. Their first meeting with the opposition was scheduled for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We offered to take my wife to the airport to see her off, but she made it clear that this was not necessary as her boss Michael had left his car at the airport while he was away. As a result, they were more comfortable doing it this way. It was maddening because they couldn't tell us when they would be back. There really wasn't much difference between me and that idiot. The difference in height could be 2 inches, but no more. He was about 6 years younger, but not in better physical shape than me. It didn't hurt that he was actually a nice-looking man. I knew it would be an equal fight. My daughter Julie, realizing that I was thinking about this, stood in front of me, making sure that I did not have the opportunity to jump off the step and get to him. My daughter did the smart thing if I moved, so did she, trying to keep me behind her. She did it to protect me from becoming a complete jerk. We stood on the porch and waved goodbye. No doubt, Chastity was looking forward to wild nights with her new lover Michael in the bright lights of the big city. Chastity was invited to the firm 6 years ago. Since she was promoted to associate partner at this law firm 2 years ago, our lives have changed, and not for the better. The power of the new position seemed to go to her head. Unknown to anyone but me, Michael's wife Louise contacted me a couple of weeks ago with many details about his past relationships with women who worked under him. Louise told me that was the last time he did this to her. They set a trap for him. As soon as his car was out of sight, my daughter and I went inside. "Do you think Mom has any idea what we know about her plans, Dad?" asked my daughter Julie. "That Michael is planning to add another notch to his belt with her, probably not," I replied. She was never able to see beyond the smoke and mirrors, even with her legal mind. If she heard rumors about his past behavior, she ignored them because she never took idle talk seriously. With her legal mind, she still can't understand it simply. It is a fact that rumors always begin with a basis of truth about the person himself. Your mother still sees the world and others through rose-colored glasses. However, she will join this relationship voluntarily because she believes that she will not be caught. For her, it was always hidden from sight, therefore out of mind. For her, it will be seen as a sexy vacation from the boring routine of our daily lives, I explained. It will be a rude awakening for her when she is forced to realize that she has simply become another of the many women he has used. It will be even worse when she is faced with the reality of what she has done. My daughter looked at me seriously before saying, "Why do you say that? If you think that, why didn't you try to stop it?" "You know your mother as well as I do," I said. If I told her not to have an affair, she would deny that she was planning anything like that. She would simply say that I was jealous, immature, and childishly naive. The discussion of this issue would go downhill. We would end up with a big deal. An argument that wouldn't lead anywhere. She would have left for the trip angry with me anyway, and would have continued with her plan as soon as they turned the first corner. She had already made up her mind. Nothing we would have said or done would have changed. Her opinion. "Does his wife know what's going to happen?" asked Julie. "Yes, and also her father," I said. "They already have paperwork prepared to submit when they catch them. This isn't the first time he's done this. Louise has the names of other women he took as his last mistresses. Her children are already grown enough for her, so it's easy to take care of their needs without him. That's why she decided to destroy the facade they called marriage. He will be served divorce papers for adultery, and my wife will be served papers for interference with marriage." "Will you forgive Mom, Dad?" Julie asked with a worried look. "Not this time," I said. "I already forgave her once. It's different for me, and she won't be forgiven. It's time to settle the score and move on." The moment she left, divorce was already on the agenda. She had her chance and missed it. I will remember the look on my daughter's face for the rest of my life, because neither she nor any of our children ever knew. It must have been a big shock for her to find out that their mother had already cheated once. "Dad, you better explain that comment," Julie said, "because it just doesn't make sense." "Julie, you're the youngest, so what I just told you stays between us," I said. "Last time it was before she found out she was pregnant with you, and continued until she clearly started showing. If you were his child, I would have left her then. Luckily, the blood test confirmed that you are mine." The look of shock on my 18-year-old daughter's face was priceless. It was a family secret, known only to three. For the sake of the family, we deliberately kept it a secret. "Who is he? Do we know him?" asked Julie. "This is a man I haven't spoken to in 18 years, I said. "Your kids all call him Uncle Charles." Julie sat there, taking it all in. Everything was becoming clearer to her. If Charles was present at a family event, her father never went. Her mother always drove them, but she deliberately tried to avoid Charles. Over the years, her grandparents celebrated Christmas twice. Christmas Eve with her family, Christmas with him. Now she understood why her father had never communicated or associated with her uncle. "Hey, Julie," I said sarcastically, "maybe you should text your uncle and let him know that Chastity will be back at the market soon, and let him know what hotel they're staying at this week. With his past experiences with your mom, he might see this as a chance to reconnect for old time's sake." With these words, I went to the kitchen and started making coffee. With the Southeastern Missouri newspaper in front of me, I began scanning the classified pages for a place to rent while I looked for something to buy. I knew that until Julie graduated from university, Chastity would be allowed to stay in the house. I needed to move before Chastity came back. Judge Donald McDonald always put the needs of children first in all of his decisions. In many cases, this resulted in parents being dissatisfied. not appearing in his court when ordered was tantamount to signing his own death warrant. I knew the results of many of his decisions, so I planned accordingly. I heard Julie's phone ring. I knew she had answered and was talking quietly to someone. I could hear her voice, but since she spoke very quietly, I could not make out the words. They had to talk for quite some time because I had made several calls and was getting ready to inspect several rental units. Dad, Uncle Charles admitted the scam and asked how I knew about it. Julie said as she walked into the kitchen. I told him what was going on in our lives at the moment. He fell silent for a few minutes before saying that your dad doesn't deserve to have this happen to him. He said if you're willing to listen to his side, he'll be waiting for you. After 18 years, I have to admit, reflecting on that time, that maybe it's time to hear my older brother's side. Chastity's behavior made me look at that time from a different angle. I saw their behavior then as a complete betrayal, but I stayed in the marriage for the sake of the children. I was old school. I didn't want my children to grow up in a divided home. I opened the liquor cabinet and pulled out a 40-ounce bottle of Jack before saying, Julie, I need you to take me somewhere and get the car back home. If either of us is sober by then, when this bottle runs out, I'll be home. If not, then when I wake up. He was waiting for me at our old favorite spot, a little fishing spot at the back of our father's property. At first, we just passed the bottle to each other before he told me his side of the story. She was the complete opposite of what Chastity had told me, so I knew the truth had to be somewhere in the middle. After all these years, the truth no longer mattered. It was nice to hear him take responsibility for his behavior after all these years. I thought that, with what my wife was about to do, I could now place more blame on her. Additionally, Charles was always more of a follower than a leader throughout his life. When we were both drunk, our father found us. He saw the fire we had lit and came out with a gun to investigate, thinking he would have to drive away the local teenagers. He pulled us into the back of Charles' truck and drove us back to the farmhouse. Our mother, just like in the old days, took out her cast iron skillet to cook us some eggs and fried potatoes to begin the sobering up process. It's been a long time since I heard my father say, "If you boys want to get drunk and act like idiots, do it here in the back 50. Then, with a smile, he added, "Thank God you did it right." While we were eating, my mother called my daughter and Charles' wife. By the time they arrived, we were starting to sober up. At least we weren't speaking slurred anymore. Mary looked at us in bewilderment. Since she married Charles after everything happened, she never saw us together. "Okay, you made up," Mary said. "After all these years, I think we all have a right to know what caused the separation in the first place." I was about to speak, but Charles pushed me, just like he did when we were kids. It was always his signal for me to shut up while he was trying to get us out of trouble with our parents. He was always better than me at coming up with stories that people would buy. I expected to hear another one, but I was wrong. "Chastity and I," Charles began. "We had an affair while she was pregnant with Julie. It was my fault. I was still immature and stupid. My younger brother, who is more mature, caught us. He told me then that I was dead to him in his eyes, and before today it was like that." My father, finally hearing the reason why Charles and I ended our relationship the first time, said, "Damn, if I were Clint, I would kill you." "What caused you to burst the dam?" Mom asked. "Chastity flew to New York with her boss," I replied. According to the hotel they were staying at, they only booked one room for the entire stay. Louise, Michael's wife, and her father have private investigators on them. I will be provided with copies of their claims, videos of them being served with claims, and any other evidence they find. I realized as I said this that Julie had learned that her mother and Michael had been planning this all for a long time. This was hard for Julie to realize because now it seemed to her that her mother was looking forward to it. Now Julie understood why I behaved the way I did. "I should have let you go after that bastard, Dad," my daughter said, looking me straight in the eyes. No one knew what to say, so I added, "Since Chastity will be allowed to keep the house while Julie lives there and goes to university, I need to find a place to live before she comes back." "Dad, I'm not going to live with Mom," Julie said. "Where you go, I will go. We will do it together." Julie was like me. When she said something, she meant it, no matter the cost. "Julie, come with me for a minute," Mom said, and they went upstairs. My parents' house was a huge 2-story farmhouse. By the time they returned, the two had decided that Julie and I would move in with them for the time being. All we needed to take with us was our clothes. My daughter told me off on the way home. She said, "You need to stop defending my mom or any of us, Dad. We're all adults now." She went to New York knowing full well what she was going to do with Michael, believing that she wouldn't get caught. To me, that shows what she really thinks about the two of us. After we got home Monday night, we began slowly moving the items we wanted to pick up. Each of us took our favorite TVS. I took my rocking chair. She grabbed her makeup table and mirror. Chastity called throughout the week to keep us informed of what was happening. There was progress, but it was slow. Louise called because she decided that we should finally meet. We agreed to do this Thursday night at Logan's Roadhouse around 8. I came in work clothes, without a tie. She was there, dressed in a dress and skirt. I recognized her by the white scarf she was wearing and went over to introduce myself. She was pleasant to look at. It was obvious that she was several years younger and healthy as a horse. She had long blonde hair, soft blue eyes, and a slender figure that commanded attention. Her curves were an open invitation to most men to look inside and get to know each other. She was naturally strikingly beautiful. What impressed me most about her figure was that she dressed conservatively. Michael has truly proven himself to be a fool in my opinion. Having such a treasure at home and going after my wife, who was at least 5 years older, just didn't make sense in my eyes. Why would anyone go for comfort food when they have prime meat right in front of them? I found out that she is indeed 10 years younger than me. Her 2 young daughters were 8 and 10 years old. I explained that I have 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl, ranging in age from 23 to 18, but only one still lives at home. She was a kindergarten teacher. Now it became clear why she dressed like that. I worked as a human resources manager at a nursing home in the city. I kept thinking that my teachers in elementary school were never this hot. It was Louise who informed me that they would still be in New York for the weekend because they had finished about 70% of the work on settling the details. After that, they will have to translate everything into legal language and sign an agreement before they can leave. They will be served late on Sunday evening and early Monday morning when they are awakened from a sound sleep. The hotel security service, having received management approval, will allow private detectives into the lover's room. She asked me how I dealt with it. I said much better than last time. We all ended up talking about it. I noted that the main difference between the two was that this time it was intentional. Last time everything was so black and white. She asked if I knew who was first. I told her it was my older brother over 18 years ago, before my youngest child was born. Until this week, we hadn't spoken to each other in 18 years. We made peace last Sunday after I told my daughter Julie about it. I said, "She made us work the way we did when we were young. I had the worst hangover I've had in years." Louise laughed, and I said, "It makes it even worse that our father caught us like he did when we were prepubescent teenagers and dragged our asses home like we were still wet behind the ears." Louise thought it was funny, but said it must be nice to be around her parents. I told her that my youngest daughter and I would be moving in with my parents until I found a new home for us. I took my tools, sporting weapons and clothes, and left the rest. I will keep Chastity's cell phone number active until Sunday evening and then block my wife's number forever. Before leaving for the night, Louise and I danced a few times in a nearby bar. I went home in good spirits, all things considered, and was questioned by my daughter Julie. Miss knew everything, should have known everything. The next day, while we were getting ready for the day, Julie continued to tease me, repeating over and over again, "Daddy has found a new girlfriend." Julie and I enjoyed a fantastic Sunday dinner, and my parents were already fully settled. It was a special time for my mother because she had to cook for the group again. She was delighted that we both ate so much and that there weren't many leftovers. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I received a call. This woke me up from a sound sleep. Louise called to confirm that when the hotel detective let them into the room, they were both asleep. Cams filmed the whole thing while they were being served in bed. She sent a temporary copy of the video of this happening to me. I got out of bed, put on my trousers, and went downstairs to put the kettle on. I had just made myself a cup of hot black tea when my mother joined me. "Is the water still hot?" she asked. I got up to make her some tea when I said, "Look at the video I just received on my cell phone." I listened and watched as my mother's expression changed. Chastity and Michael were caught naked under the sheets. Their recorded voices expressed shock. Both looked like deer caught in headlights at night. No one who saw it could say that what they did was completely innocent. She immediately sent a copy to her own cell phone before putting it down. "We're done with Chastity," Mom said. I loved the complete shock on her face when she was served with the civil suit. "Julie and I blocked her phone number tonight," I said, "because I was warned that they would be served with lawsuits tonight." Mom took her and Dad's cell phones so I could show her how to do it while doing it. It's been a long time since my mom and I shared tea in the middle of the night. It brought back a lot of sweet memories for both of us. I walked in and told the receptionist to block all incoming calls from my wife because I didn't want to talk to her. Around 11, she came and said, "Listen, she calls here every 20 minutes. How can we stop this?" "What's your mobile number?" I asked. She gave it to me. I said, "I'm texting you a video clip. Next time she asks to talk to me, ask for her cell number. If she gives it, send her a copy and let her know by text that Julie and I received it last night." That was the last time I saw her for the rest of the day. As soon as she left for the rest of the day, she said, "I did what you asked." Once she got it, there were no more calls. It intrigued me, so I looked it up. "If your daughter or you need anything, just call, okay?" I nodded my head affirmatively. "Thanks, boss," she said. I deleted it and didn't tell anyone. While my mom was preparing dinner before Julie went to help her, I told my daughter about what happened at work. "I got a text message from a number I don't recognize," Julie said. "It was from my mom asking me to call her. It didn't take long to realize it was probably Michael's number." "I think your brothers will call us around 8 o'clock this evening," I said. "Your mother will call them. They were probably already at the house and found us gone." "If they do, they'll be shocked," Julie said. "I left a short note for Mom saying that apparently you will be forcing your lover Michael to move out since his wife kicked him out." I thought it was funny because I knew Chastity would never tell our sons anything that would make her admit to what she did. "Dad, let's have some fun and turn off our cell phones," Julie said. "So my brothers will have to contact Mom to find out what's going on." That's what we did. For my daughter and I, it was a peaceful night. For others, it was not. We found out later that my sons actually came to our former home. As soon as they walked through the front door, they discovered that my favorite chair was missing. This resulted in the entire house being searched. It quickly became clear that Julie and I had moved out. It was only when they entered the kitchen that they found their sister's note. When they called Julie and me, their call automatically went to our voicemail. This made them even more angry. They were confronted by their mother on her cell phone, who claimed she didn't understand what the note meant. She also told them that she didn't understand why we moved out. They called all over the city looking for us, but to no avail. Finally, in desperation, they called their Uncle Charles, who told them that after what their mother did the second time, perhaps his brother did not want to be found. So Jason and Justin told their uncle about the note and what it said. All I can say for sure is that Michael is your mom's boss, and they've been sharing a hotel room in New York for over a week, Charles said. You're old enough to draw your own conclusions from this. The boys were so shocked by this that they forgot to ask themselves how and why their Uncle Charles knew it. My sons, in their search for Julie and I, spread the news of the breakup between me and my wife better and faster than gossip could have done. By the end of the next workday, my secretary forwarded a call from my oldest son, Jake. After the greetings, he got down to business. "What's going on, Dad?" he asked. "Where do you and Julie live now?" "Nothing much, considering that we mostly know that in our world, what was wrong is now right, and what was right is now wrong," I replied. "Dad, let's not get into religion," he said. "Just tell me the facts." "Check your text messages for what I just sent," I said. "This will answer your question. Send this to Jason, and if you want to talk, come see my father after dinner." With that, I hung up, texted the video, and sent one to Julie to let her know what I did. Less than 10 minutes later, Jake texted back, "Damn, I'll be at Grandpa's at 8. My parents left my kids and me alone, so we could have a serious conversation about our current marital status. Julie and I listened to what they thought I should do next. The boys did not see their mother's actions as a serious problem and believed that I should get over it. "We all make mistakes, Dad. Look how many times you forgave us when we were growing up." This angered their little sister. "You may be my brothers, but you're both fucking idiots," Julie said angrily. "It wasn't a damn accident. Mom and Michael planned everything. The hotel room was reserved for Mr. and Mrs. Michael Truscott a week before they left." As I listened to her, watching my sons' faces, it was a look I will never forget. We watched Mom leave our house that Sunday afternoon. She left knowing she was going to cheat, Julie continued. She made him pick her up and seemed worried about what she was getting into. Dad offered to take her to the airport. But no, she wanted to rub it in our faces by leaving with him. We were probably what they were laughing at on the way to New York. She didn't know that we knew, and didn't realize that we were seeing through their farce. Julie asked me why I didn't stop her, and I told her she would have lied and denied it. I continued. "Your mother's actions made it clear that she was leaving the marriage. This was not an accident. It was all planned and intentional. Dad and I knew about 2 weeks before she left," Julie said. "Michael's wife warned us. That's why we had video within an hour of them being served with the lawsuits. Boys, you have to understand that your mother didn't just do this to me," I said. "She did it to all of us. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow to get tested for STDs." All my children looked at me with their amazed eyes. "I'm doing this because I can't be sure that she didn't have other lovers on the side," I continued. "This may be the first time she's been caught. She's been on business trips quite often over the past few years. Her behavior makes me wonder if these trips were of this nature." "Dad, you can't be serious," Jason said. "There is no chance that my mother had other lovers." "Based on what we have learned, can we all say that we will get the truth to these questions from your mother?" I answered. "The truth doesn't matter, the facts do. If I don't have an STD, Then we know that what you believe can be true. When there was no response from my 3 children, I said, "It's time for me to go get a cup of coffee." My parents were in the kitchen. They heard the entire conversation. "Clint, you're approaching this right," my father said. "I wouldn't have thought about the possibility of others. Being an attorney at a firm that partly sues the medical industry and pharmaceutical companies, it does raise the possibility that she slept with others. She was always flying off somewhere because there have always been meditations before the court. Even if she had separate numbers on these trips," I continued, "all it takes is a call from one number to another. Since in our society one truth can be another's lie, I cannot afford to trust everything that she's been saying these last years." At that moment, my mobile phone rang. It was Louise, so I said I should take this call in private. So I went out onto the outside veranda. "Hi, Louise. Good to hear from you," I said. "What's happened?" "I talked to Michael. It didn't go well. He doesn't understand why I'm filing for divorce," she said. "He thinks I should forgive him and move on with my life as before. I told him that my daughters are old enough now and I don't need him in their lives. That's when he realized that I no longer have love for him. He killed her through his false ways. Chastity, he says, is in a bad place now that she's not working. She's trying to figure out how they could have done all this. Looks like they'll be back home Thursday afternoon because an agreement has been reached." "Julie, my daughter, and I blocked her number," I explained. "I told the receptionist not to take calls from her. It got so bad that she asked me to make them stop. I gave the receptionist a copy of the video you sent and told her she should forward it to Chastity. That stopped the calls. My wife now knows that we all know what happened. It must be hard for her to realize that she can no longer control the situation. I told Michael that his personal belongings would be kept in the garage until he got them," Louise said. "Then I told him that I had already changed the locks on our house. I just wanted to see how you dealt with it." I just finished a long conversation with my 3 children, explaining that this may not have been her only scam, and that's why I'm going to get checked out, I said. When they asked why I thought it was necessary, I said, "Do you think your mother would honestly admit that she had others? I guess I'm just taking it one day at a time." Julie and I moved out. We talked a little more before wishing each other good night. When I returned to the house, they were all in the kitchen. All 5 of them looked at me as if they were waiting for me to say something. "I'm taking the day off tomorrow," I said. "I have an appointment with a lawyer at 9 in the morning. Since the 2 lovers may be returning home on Thursday, I would like them to be served with their lawsuits when they get off the plane." I think that's when my sons finally realized the gravity of the situation because they started to have tears in their eyes. Then my father said, "Jake and Jason, Michael wasn't the first man your mother was caught with by your father, but he will be the last. He's a more manly man than me because I would have killed the first son of a bitch." "That's nonsense," Jason said. "Mom said she had never cheated before, and until we said we had the video, she denied that she was having an affair." "You are idiots," my mother said. "Why do you think your father never spoke to your Uncle Charles until this week? They finally made up about it on Sunday night." The boys were amazed and looked at their sister. "Uncle Charles admitted it," she said. "He said our dad didn't deserve it, but he did. When I told Dad that Uncle Charles and Dad made up." The emotions were raw for everyone involved. I got up and put the kettle on. All 3 of my children experienced the consequences of their mother's behavior in their own way. As their father, all I could do was be there for them. I knew it would change their lives in the future, even though they might never see it. How they deal with this will forever determine what kind of people they become. The boys decided that they would rather go home and prepare for the workday tomorrow. By the time they left, the kettle was boiling. I prepared a cup of hot tea for myself and my mother. Since it was almost 11, Julie climbed into bed. This left me and my parents a chance to talk. "They'll be watching you," Mom said. "How you handle it will give them guidance." "I know, Mom," I said. "So I'm going to try to stay calm," I continued. "To do that, I need to leave it to the lawyers. I can't go back in time and change what happened. Other than killing her, the rest is really out of my hands." For some, this would be the final decision, my father admitted honestly. "You're right, but in my opinion, chastity isn't worth going to jail for," I said. "So does Charles." My father looked at me with pride in his eyes and said, "You are a better man, son. Your mother and I should have raised you right." The lawyer I contacted listened intently as I recounted the events that led me to her office. It was interesting for me to watch her take notes. When I mentioned the name of the company where my wife worked, her eyes lit up. "Mr. Clint Walker, did you know that I once worked for them?" she asked. "They have a code of ethics that is written down in the HR manual, which I still have a copy of." I think she saw my interest because she added, "We might sue the firm in addition to both of them. We might not get much more than legal fees, given the way state judges look at things at present, but it will create serious problems for both." "Brenda Ferguson, let's do this," I said. "As far as I know, they are returning from New York and will be here on the first incoming flight from St. Louis on Thursday afternoon." After I left a deposit for her services, she said, "I'm looking forward to it. When they fired me, they said I had no desire to follow through. They'll soon find out how wrong they were." I left her office thinking that David was going toe-to-toe with Goliath. The company where my wife worked was the largest in the area and had 4 divisions. Our family doctor was shocked to learn why I wanted to be tested for all sexually transmitted infections. He was our doctor all the years while our children were growing up. He would never have expected this, but he figured it was better to be safe. What I didn't know was that my oldest son, Jake, called his mother after leaving his grandparents' house to let her know what was going on. When he told his mother that I was taking tests to make sure I was clean, she asked why. He told her directly that between Uncle Charles and Michael Truscott, no one in the family could say for sure that there were no other lovers when she was not at home. She wanted to say something, but Jake told her not to worry because she had been caught lying too often. "Give things some time to cool, Mom, before you explain anything," he said, "because now we'll take it as just another lie." The company where my wife worked was fined while the lovers were on the road. My lawyer asked for $10 million. She also made clear in the suit that the dismissal of the senior and junior partners would be considered an admission of guilt. The moment the 2 lovers got off the plane, they were met by a procedural officer. It was noted by a third party that they did not appear to be a happy couple and that my wife had to take a taxi home. The doctor called me for an appointment for a shot, and it turned out I had a mild STD. Because it had to be reported to county health authorities, Chastity was called in and forced to reveal all of her sexual partners. My lawsuit was made public on the 6 p.m. news. Chastity and Michael's behavior became public knowledge. Brenda Ferguson began to act quite effectively, it seemed to me. Julie called me in response to my text message while she was moving from class to class, and I gave her the news of what the doctor had said. She called her brothers and told them that their mother must have had more lovers, explaining why. I sat with my parents and my daughter while they ate. I declined because I had a dinner date. My always curious daughter asked if she was with the same person as last week. When I answered yes, she smiled and winked. As I was leaving, she sent me a text message. It said, "Daddy has a girlfriend." I was pleased that despite everything going on, she could still find humor in it. Louise Truscott smiled when she saw me as I walked into Red Lobster's. This time I dressed informally, as did she. "You don't do small things," Louise said with a laugh. "My dad says you're a rock star, and he loves it. If that doesn't take Michael down a notch, nothing will." "The lawyer I hired used to work for them and is using me to get back at them, with my permission," I said. "She's got a cop, HR management, that allows us to sue them for not following their policies." "I'd like to be a fly on the wall in their office tomorrow," Louise said. "It won't be a good day for them." The waitress then showed us to our table. We both ordered alcoholic drinks, after which Louise handed me an envelope. "Inside is a certified statement from 5 of Michael's subordinates," she said. "They were all employees at the time. Their statements make it clear that they were forced to satisfy his sexual needs." "Oh, my case in court just got stronger," I said. To be honest, when she suggested this course of action, she thought that because of the way judges look these days, we'd be happy if we won enough to pay her legal fees. I think it will go a long way toward establishing a long-term pattern of behavior. We both went through divorces and began to develop a friendship. I even began to enjoy the time we spent together. It was almost midnight when I returned to my parents. I sat in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil so I could make myself a cup of tea before bed. It gave me time to reflect on everything that had happened since Chastity left on her trip. I was pouring hot water into a cup when my daughter said, "Daddy, make some for me too, please." I looked at my daughter and realized she was crying, so I replied, "It's okay to cry. It's part of healing. I'm surprised you lasted this long." She threw herself into my arms and burst into tears. I just held her until she calmed down. By the time we drank our tea, she had calmed down. She asked me how my dinner with Louise was. I said that honestly, we were just getting to know each other better, but it looked like it would turn out to be a good friendship. Julie asked a few questions about her, and I answered them to the best of my ability. I took the statements to my lawyer at lunchtime on Friday. When she called me later that day, she said she was busy getting certified statements about another senior partner at the firm and asked if she could take it on as a class action for all the women in this case. This meant resubmitting and asking for a significantly larger amount. I told her to continue. Before saying goodbye, she said she learned from a friend that it had been a very difficult day for Chastity and Michael. Even though they brought home a huge settlement and made millions for the firm, there was no mention of it. The employees I worked with were very supportive, as were other people in senior management. I went to the bank and withdrew $1,000 in cash on the way home. As soon as I returned, I hugged my mother and stuffed the money into her apron. Yes, she noticed this and looked at me with a look that only a mother can give to her son. "Just consider it a donation to help cover your extra expenses while we live here." "Okay," I said. "Anywhere else, it would have cost me a lot more." She was about to say something, so I looked at her so that she spoke. "Only this time, it won't happen again. Understood?" I nodded, grateful that she let me get away with it. Chastity returned home to an empty house, having survived a day where she was treated like a disease. Both Michael and she were effectively unwanted guests. Her husband and his lawyer were suing the whole damn firm. She couldn't understand how her husband, Clint, had managed to find a disgruntled ex-employee who would never have made a partner to represent him. It was not the fact of the lawsuit itself that was important. What was important was that Clint used someone who knew all the tricks they would try to minimize the claim before moving forward. This put the firm at a disadvantage from the very beginning. Finally, having made herself a rye cocktail, she sat down and read the divorce petition to the end. She then realized that both her husband and daughter knew about their plans when they saw them leave. They even knew that they were registered as a couple. Clint now had to see that this turned out to be the end of their marriage. She, not seeing this, sent a message to her husband and daughter, which was now quite clear, even if it wasn't true. Now there is no way to undo the damage she has caused. Her best defense would be to stall until Clint calmed down. Maybe then they could talk. Jake was right. Everything she did now seemed like a lie because of how everyone saw what she did. None of this was definitely worth what she was forcing everyone to face. She walked out the front door to get the mail, thinking it couldn't get any worse. While going through it to sort through the junk, she found an envelope addressed to her from the county health department. After opening the letter, she found out that I had contracted an STD. Chastity was asked to come in for a checkup. Chastity sat down and started crying. This was becoming a real nightmare for her. There have been several chance encounters on business trips in recent years. Clint would tell their children the results. Her family will now think that she is just a slut. Michael Truscott sat behind the counter in a darkened bar on the cheap side of town, drowning his sorrows as he tried to understand why his wife Louise had filed for divorce. She forgave him for all the other times, which is what made this time so special. He really wasn't paying attention to what was happening around him, so he didn't notice the man who sat down on the stool next to him. Loud voices came from the other end of the hall, attracting everyone's attention. This quickly escalated into a fight. Michael turned to look, just like everyone else, and was hit, not once, but 3 times very hard in the face. A voice from somewhere said, "I'm a friend of Chastity's husband, Clint. Every time I see you, I will do it again. What gave you the right to destroy the life of a good man?" The only thing he could see through the blood and pain was that it was one huge African American. I knew that the situation with my eldest son, Jake, had to be resolved. It happened on a Saturday afternoon while I was cleaning out a couple of paddocks in my dad's barn. Jake was very stubborn, and once he made up his mind about something, no one could change his mind. He visited his mother in the morning. Chastity took it badly and spent a couple of hours crying on his shoulder. He decided that it would be best for everyone if I took her back, and we all continued to live as if nothing had happened. I knew there was no point in arguing with him, so I let him talk until he let it all out. "Jake, if you were married," I said, "and found out that your wife was sleeping with others, would you take the advice you gave me?" He fell silent, so I added, "You come here and tell me that I've had enough of marrying a slut. I should shut up and enjoy her presence in my life. This means that in your eyes, I'm just a non-entity that everyone should trample on." His face turned white because he had never seen it like this. I was upset, so I added, "If you don't respect me as a person capable of making my own decisions, don't come here again." I walked away and left him standing with a huge dose of foot-in-mouth syndrome. He was young and stupid. Like me in my youth, he reacted without hesitation. Now he had to face my reaction. Jake, not fully understanding his behavior, went to talk to his Uncle Charlie. After hearing what happened, he told Jake that it reminded him of how stupid he was when he was his age. "Your mother was after me, Jake," Charlie said. "I fell in love, and it cost me 18 years of separation from my brother. You need to understand that there are always 2 sides to the story. Both parties express their emotions in everything they say about the situation. Your father is right, your mother did not get the STD from Michael. So whoever it was, she brought it home and shared it with your father. To me, this proves that she saw my brother as nothing," Charlie added. "After everything he did for his family, this was his final reward. You tell him to accept this fact and live with it. It only made your father angrier." "How you fix it is your problem, Jake," Charlie added. "But correct it, because if you don't correct it, you may lose your father forever. Our father always said that giving the person who hurt you one chance, if they do it again, they're done. Your mother took her chance with me. It's sad that by her behavior, she showed that she never learned anything. It was a great day Monday morning at the firm where Chastity and Michael worked, because my lawyer had dropped my lawsuit against the firm. They both returned to good standing. They were praised throughout the day for the outstanding settlements they achieved for their clients and the proceeds they earned. Michael Truscott looked terrible, but managed to cope. He had 2 huge bruises and a cut above his left eyebrow. In one private moment, he walked into Chastity's office to tell her what had happened and what had been said. As a result, Chastity was standing by my car as I left the nursing home that day. She looked tired and exhausted when I came out to her. I had to be very careful about what I did or said. "Call off your dogs," Chastity said. "Michael has enough problems of his own to look around because of your thirst for revenge." "I don't know what you're talking about," I said honestly. "He was beaten," Chastity continued. "The man said that he is your friend, and every time he sees him, he will do it again." I started laughing. I thought this was one of the best news in recent weeks. Having calmed down, I said, "If I knew who it was, believe me, I would buy this man a large bottle of whiskey as a token of gratitude. I think your lover got off easy. If it were me, he would already be dead." And then I received a text message. I looked at it and saw that it was from Louise. She wrote that I should come to her as soon as possible. This is important. As soon as I read this, another message arrived with her address. I replied that I was already on my way. "I've never seen you so cold and cruel," Chastity said. "It shouldn't be like this. Get your damn lawyer and let's get a divorce already." I got into the car, started it, and drove away, leaving it standing there. I'm done with her lies and ideas of morality forever. Louise was standing at the door as I arrived. It was obvious that she was very upset. "What's happened?" I asked as I approached the front door. "Is there something I can help solve the problem with?" "My dad's friend made his cousin beat up Michael," Louise said, "and used your name to send a message." I guess my huge smile said a lot. Relief quickly appeared on her face. "Are you not angry or worried?" she asked, relieved. "Not at all. I just wish I knew where he lives so I can send him a thank you whiskey," I said. Automatically, I hugged her for a moment. Louise didn't resist. Reluctantly, I let her go. I was about to apologize, but she stopped me with a kiss on the cheek. "They are both inside and want to work things out with you," Louise said, taking my hand. We held hands as she led me to the kitchen. I saw her daughters peeking out from one of the bedrooms, so I winked at them with a smile. They answered me the same. Louise's father was a little younger than mine, but I treated him with respect. When I saw the huge African-American man, I smiled. "If you were of age," I said, "I would send you a large bottle of whiskey as a token of gratitude." After that, I extended my hand to him as a sign of friendship, and he accepted it, adding, "Next time you want to do something stupid, ask yourself if it's worth going to jail. My father told me that when I was your age, and it saved me a lot of trouble." With the tension relieved, formal introductions were made, and before long her father said it was time to take the young man home. This left Louise and I with her 2 children. Her 2 daughters came out and introduced themselves. Livia was 10 years old and Lori was 8. I asked them about their favorite restaurant. They said it was an all-you-can-eat pizza place called Zizzy's. I got down on one knee and said, "Would you young ladies allow me to invite you and your mother there for dinner?" Perhaps it was because of my suit without a tie, because they both immediately said yes. I said, "Well, there's one thing I need to do before we can go." "What is this?" the girls asked. "I need to call my mom and let her know I won't be home for dinner." They thought it was funny and laughed until we got there. Louise and I walked into Zizi's as the girls ran ahead. As we sat down, Louise's colleague saw her. As Louise approached for more pizza, a colleague stopped to talk to her. "Are you Mom's boyfriend?" Livia asked. "I'm a guy and I'm her friend," I replied, not knowing where she was going with this. "Did you go on a date?" Livia asked insistently. "I haven't invited her yet," I replied, "but I would have to get permission from someone else before I could do that." "From whom?" asked Lori. "From you and your sister," I said. The girls laughed before the two of them exploded. "You can, because Mom already says she likes you." When Louise returned to our table, she found us laughing and talking happily, as if we were old friends. I said I was going to get some more, and Lori said she would come with me, so off we went. Lori decided she was ready for dessert, and I put what she wanted on her plate. I thought she would return to the table, but she waited until I had helped myself. Once we got back to their house, I escorted the three ladies to the front door. As Louise opened the door, I lowered myself to my daughter's level and thanked them for having dinner together. As soon as the door opened, the girls ran inside, getting ready for bed. Then I decided to say goodbye. Since I was extremely inexperienced in dating, I decided it was best to just say goodbye. So, after saying goodbye, I got ready to leave. "Come back here, Clint," Louise said. I turned on the step so that we were face to face. Louise leaned over and kissed me on the lips. I reciprocate her feelings. "My daughter said you were going to ask me on our first date," Louise said. "Livia made a mistake?" Louise took me by surprise, so I began to explain what happened while she was talking to a colleague. Then Louise and I sat on the front porch like teenagers discussing the situation. It took us a while to both admit that we were interested in each other, but were both worried about what we were facing. Since it was almost the end of September, we decided to take the girls to the town fair the following Saturday and then decide what to do next. It was almost 10 o'clock in the evening when I arrived at my parents' farm. I went into the house and found that everyone was still awake. Julie immediately noticed my good mood as soon as I walked through the door. "Dad has a huge happy smile on his face," Julie said. "The meeting must have been really important for him to be so happy." I told my parents and daughter about the events of my day after I left for work. My father thought it was funny that Chastity asked me to leave Michael alone because he already had a lot of problems. On Friday, my lawyer filed a new lawsuit against the firm. The suit named 4 senior partners and 16 female victims, and I tried them jointly. Copies of the claim were delivered to the senior partners' homes. 3 of the older partners were told by their spouses not to return home. Brenda Ferguson continued her campaign of calling Chastity to find out the name of her divorce lawyer every day. My mother had email addresses for many of Chastity's relatives. That night, before I returned to the farm, she sent each of them a copy of how Chastity and Michael were served with the lawsuit. The text said that this was not the first lover she had on these so-called business trips. This was the first time she got caught. Clint contracted an STD. I was getting up, ready to go pick up Louise and the kids, when Julie said, "You really love Louise, don't you?" "Julie, the sad fact of life is that since the divorce started," I said, "a lot of the friends your mom and I had over the years have disappeared." "Louise and I bonded over shared experiences," I said. "Because of this, it was easy for us to trust each other. It's too early to tell where our relationship will lead, but I'm open to it. Dad, if you need dating advice, don't hesitate to ask," Julie said with a smile. "Just promise me that you will introduce us to her before things get too serious." It seems that Louise was afraid of heights, so I spent about an hour with her daughters on the Ferris wheel. At their age, it was a favorite pastime. We played by ear and just enjoyed the moment. All 4 headed to the food area. The children decided that they were hungry. Lori sat on my shoulders because she was tired. We were queuing for food when my brother Charles and his wife found us with their two youngest. The elders were somewhere with their friends. Presentations were made. Mary and Louise hit it off immediately. As soon as I took Lori off my shoulders, we sat down to eat. 4 children found company around their age. The adults could only follow them. Considering the cost of fare rides these days, it didn't take long before I spent a couple $100s. Mary and Charles decided to have a Sunday family meeting. They invited Louise and her children. Louise said she would love to come, but her daughters would be spending the day with their father for the first time since he left for New York. By 6 o'clock in the evening, the children are very tired. Louise had just bathed her daughters and put them to bed when Michael called her. He won't be able to pick up the children on Sunday. He was in the emergency room receiving medical care. Looks like he was beaten again. Louise told him it couldn't be Chastity's husband because he had spent the whole day at the fair with me and the kids. Michael was unhappy about this. I called my brother to let him know the kids were coming. I left her house around 9 p.m. reluctantly because we had decided that we would start dating. On Sunday, I picked up the new ladies in my life at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and went to my brother's. Julie and her current interest were already there. My mom and dad were also present. Charles's entire army was in place. My 2 oldest came last. It was a big event for my brother. For the first time in his entire married life, I was in his house. Mary was delighted to introduce Louise and her 2 daughters to everyone. It didn't take long before they were accepted. What got interesting for me was when my oldest son said we needed to talk. We moved to the edge of Charles's property. "Dad, I was wrong," Jake said. "I succumbed to my mother's manipulations. She set me up when I came to you last week. Uncle Charles and several of my colleagues explained everything to me." "What lesson did you learn?" I asked. "When it comes to family, first of all," Jake said, "the best thing to do is to stay away, because no matter what you do, you're only making things worse. You need to let them figure it out on their own, in their own time, not yours." "You're right, but this is the hardest thing we do because we care so much," I said. "Your mother and I will be able to talk to each other someday, but that day is still far away because of the way she behaved." "Behavior," Jake repeated. "Yes, behavior, because that's the only thing that can't be argued or explained," I continued. "Look at Louise. She stayed in a loveless marriage until she thought she could raise her daughters on her own. She chose to be patient until the time was right for her. Her behavior says more about her character than anything else. Your mother's behavior stunned your sister and me because of the cruelty with which she did it," I said. "No matter what she says with her voice, her behavior makes most of what she says a lie. One of the things our grandfather taught us when we were young," I continued, "is if I'm not worthy of honesty, then you're not worth lying." "Dad, the question must be asked," Jake said sadly. "What else did she lie about?" "That's a question that will never be answered," I said. "There's no point in wasting time looking back, son. All we can do is learn from it and move forward." "I like what I see in Louise, Dad," my eldest said. "But the more I learn about Michael and Mom, the more I think they deserve each other." Julie came up to us and said, "Your conversation is starting to attract attention. Maybe you can leave the rest for later." "We're done, sister," Jake said. "I just needed to apologize to Dad." Jake walked away and Julie asked, "What was that about?" "A bad case of foot-and-mouth disease," I explained. "It's good to see that he had the sense to admit it." Charles and Mary had a wonderful dinner. Mary took many photographs of us together. Everyone liked the way Lori kept an eye on me. When the kids started the water fight, I joined. Of course, it ended 4-1, and I was soaking wet before they got tired. I was sitting in the lounge chair, drying off, when Lori climbed into my lap and fell asleep. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Mary and Louise talking about the developing relationship between me and her daughters. My father sat down next to me and said, "This little girl has already chosen you. Be careful. Make sure you don't get into this to get revenge on Michael." I told him about our relationship from the day Louise first called me. He smiled and said, "I should have listened to my thoughts on this. Your mother asked me to have this conversation with you. Whatever you decide in the future, you both have my support." Dad, look at our society as a whole. An avid Democrat, most like one of this country's greatest presidents, John F. Kennedy, denies his membership, runs for the same office on the Republican ticket, and wins. In the next election, the most conservative members of Congress refuse to run again. What the Republicans are left with is more consistent with the views John had, F. Kennedy. However, the media fills the airwaves with hatred, propaganda, and lies, making him a traitor to the democratic values he has always upheld. He hasn't changed, but the opinions of those who look at him have changed. He's still a Kennedy Democrat. Now they are trying to convict him for something he says he didn't do and remove him from office. At the same time, they are trying to elect to the same position a person who claims to have done what the president is accused of doing. "What is the meaning of this statement?" asked my father. "They have the same idea of truth, honesty, behavior, and morality as my soon-to-be ex-wife. Those who are not New Democrats are just pieces of crap that they want to wash out of society. Truth, honesty, and good behavior mean nothing to them until they are convicted and in prison. Then they falsely claim that they are very sorry." My father laughed and replied, "People need to learn to flush 100% of the truth they see in the media and social networks down the toilet. Finding honesty in real life is hard enough for anyone. However, most are too stupid to understand this. It amazes me that we are seeing two versions of Democrats fighting each other. This simple truth explains a lot. Beyond that, considering all the accomplishments he has accomplished despite all his opponents, I wonder if it is because of their hatred or because of how incompetent their accomplishments look compared to him," I continued. "Most of them running for re-election have years of experience achieving nothing but getting re-elected again." "Damn, Clint, that's a strong statement," my dad said. "It just goes to show how effective the media is as a propaganda machine." On Monday, while I was in my office, a detective came to talk to me about the ongoing problem of Michael Truscott. It took me about an hour to explain to him what I knew and the list of women whose spouses had just found out about his affairs with their wives. "Officer, I suggest you go and talk to Brenda Ferguson and ask her for the list," I said. More than 6 weeks have passed since I learned about their relationship. Louise, Michael's wife, called me to tell me what they were planning. It had been at least 4 weeks since they went on a romantic trip. I met his wife for the first time while he was in New York with my wife. Since then, because of what was going on with our spouses, his soon-to-be ex-wife and I have grown closer and are now in a relationship that we are still trying to figure out. "It definitely paints a different picture," the detective said. "Michael Truscott has his reasons for pointing directly at you. He seems to blame you for ruining his marriage rather than his behavior. I'm starting to think he's one of those people who can't take responsibility for anything and blames someone else." After he left, I called Brenda and told her what had just happened. She expected this to happen. Michael was the type of person who would set others up, and she believed he was behind her dismissal from the firm. Then Brenda told me that my wife had finally found herself a lawyer. I found out when I returned home to my parents that it was my mother's letter that made Chastity give up. Until then, she still thought that something could be worked out between us once I cooled down after everything that had happened. I realized that Chastity must have believed that I sent this letter out of revenge. On Wednesday, Julie and I took Louise and her daughters to dinner at Olive Garden, where we were joined by my sons. During dinner, I revealed that Chastity had finally hired a lawyer to negotiate the terms of her divorce. Both of Louise's daughters seemed excited about Julie for some reason, and Julie was happy about the attention. Overall, Louise and I thought the dinner was a success. 2 months have passed since the last family meeting. On Friday afternoon, I sat next to Brenda Ferguson, waiting to be called before Judge Donald McDonald. My soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer, a divorce lawyer from the same firm, were sitting across from me in the hall. We agreed on the division of property. Since there was no mortgage on the house, it was quite simple. Chastity agreed to buy out my share of the house based on the current appraisal and give me half of our joint savings. When we were called before the judge, each of us had to confirm that we agreed with everything. As soon as we did this, the divorce was finalized. Chastity stopped me on the front steps as I was heading into the parking lot and said, "I ruined myself." I finally admitted my behavior to our sons. Julie still refuses to talk to me because she thinks what I did was intentional. I only wish I had seen earlier what kind of message I was sending. I would accept that explanation from our daughter because of her inexperience in life, I said. But from an adult, it sounds so self-confident and superficial. Louise's divorce had already been finalized. She got everything she could out of him. Michael was to pay $1,000 a month in child support, $500 each until they were 18, and half the cost of their post-secondary education. The house they owned was to be sold and the profits divided equally. Michael, for some reason, left the company and moved to another city, opening his own company. It seems that his constant encounters with fists when he least expected it got to him. With the received share in the company, he was provided for life. My parents invited Louise and the girls over for dinner. What we didn't know was that my parents also invited her parents. Given the developing relationship between Louise and I, they decided it was time to start getting to know her family in case something serious developed between us. Brenda Ferguson negotiated with the insurance company that was responsible for the firm's liability insurance. It looks like the case will be resolved out of court. After paying her 30% share, we will all receive more than $750,000. We all sat around Mom's formal dining room table, which was being used for the first time in years, just relaxing after a big dinner. When I stood up, I pushed back my chair and got down on one knee. Taking the ring box out of my pocket, I said, "Louise, will you take a second chance and marry me?" Louise said in complete shock, "Yes." That's when the real party started. Mom had to call Charles and Mary and my two sons about the good news. They arrived within half an hour. Amidst all the excitement, I noticed Lori was crying, so I walked over to her as she sat on the floor and sat down next to her. She immediately climbed onto my lap. "What happened, baby?" I asked quietly. "Nothing. I'm just happy that you're going to be my dad," Lori said. I looked at Louise, who had tears in her eyes. I think she could see them in my eyes, too. I stood up, holding Lori, and walked over to her mother. Everyone understood that this was an important moment of rapprochement. Livia came and stood next to us. "Dad," Livia said, "when Mom and you get married, will we also take your last name?" "As soon as the court allows," was my answer. "Livia and Lori," my father said, "from now on, you can call us grandparents, okay?" My only thought was how much time my new daughters would spend with my parents. Both enjoyed the prospect of spending time on the farm. My father will teach them how to ride horses in no time. Later, in private, Louise asked me how I was going to convince Michael Truscott to let me adopt his daughters and legally change their last name to mine. I said I'll leave it up to me. Then the search for a home began in earnest for us. The plan was for Louise and the girls to move there before our wedding. About a month later, I showed up unexpectedly at Michael Truscott's office. His secretary told me to come in. I walked in and closed the door behind me. His face began to heal, but his appearance had changed greatly. He was beaten 8 times. The detective interviewed all of his former lovers and their spouses, but he still had no firm suspicions. I decided to take the risk that he truly believed that I was responsible for the disfigurement on his face. "I think you heard that Louise and I are getting married," I said before he looked up. Michael's face went white as he looked up. He seemed to truly believe that I was the person responsible for the injuries he suffered. "What do you want from me?" he said fearfully. "I need your permission in the form of a legal document to adopt your daughters so they can legally take my last name. This is not my wish, but the wish of Livia, who asked her mother and me if she and her sister could take my last name. This must be done in a way that legally recognizes us both as their fathers and allows them to change their last name to mine." "Why should I consider this?" he said. "This will get you away from me forever," I said. "If you don't agree, you and I can meet often." It took him half an hour to type and print the document I asked for. I knew he didn't really care about his daughters because I hadn't seen them since he left for New York. His secretary, who was also a notary, certified the document and stamped it. According to Louise, he only married her because she became pregnant. When his family found out about this, he was pressured into proposing. I made it to the school where Louise taught kindergarten just as she was letting the class go. I had to go into the office because they didn't know me at school. I asked one of the employees to call her class and call her to the office. She was surprised to see me. "Louise, I made a promise to your daughters on the day of our engagement," I said, handing her the envelope I took from my inside jacket pocket. "I think this will allow us to give them what they want." She took it, opened it, and read the enclosed document. "How?" she asked, her eyes filling with tears. "Michael still believes I'm behind his face being met with fists," I said. "I used his fear to my advantage to achieve this for us. I thought we could arrange it so that on our wedding day, Livia and Lori could legally take my last name." "Julie told me the night we got engaged that you always keep your word," Louise said, "especially in front of a child. Do you think Brenda Ferguson will take care of the adoption papers and file them in court?" "I'll call her office," I said, taking my cell phone out of my pocket. "The secretary should be able to answer this question. If she can, I'll make an appointment at a time so you can come." The office secretary, a woman, couldn't help but overhear our conversation and said, "Louise, have you set a date?" "No, I wanted to, but Clint said he wouldn't do it until he found a way to convince Michael to let him adopt my daughters," Louise said. "He felt that if we were going to be a family, the kids should get what they want when we say our vows." We were able to meet with Brenda later that afternoon. She was delighted for both of us. Within 20 minutes, she prepared the necessary documents and printed them. With the notary statement provided by me, they were due to be filed in court by the end of the day. It took a week before we found out that my adoption and their last name change would be approved. All they wanted to know was when it would take effect. To resolve this, we held a family meeting. We scheduled it for Sunday because the movers would still be moving Louise's and the kids' things to our new home the rest of the week. Louise and I were at work the next morning when the detective investigating the ongoing attacks on Michael Truscott visited us to tell us that 2 arrests had been made. One of those arrested was another senior partner at the firm with whom Michael had slept, and an African-American man who still believed they were in a relationship. Both of those arrested were men. My brother Charles and his wife met us on Sunday. We were the last ones to arrive. We arrived with a huge pot of Boston baked beans that Louise had made. It was a potluck brunch. After the greetings, my future father-in-law asked, "What's new?" "We want to announce that in 2 weeks, 6 days before Christmas," I said, "if we can use the little shed for our parents' equipment, two things will happen. First, Louise and I will exchange vows, and second, the adoption of Livia and Lori will be completed. All three will take the name Walker. We will be spending our honeymoon next summer with our daughters," Louise added. "It will be held at either Disneyland or Disney World." It was a commotion, but in a quiet moment, Livia came over to me and sat on my lap, saying, "Thank you, Dad." "For what?" I asked. "Because you love us enough to keep your word," she replied. I couldn't answer because the 10-year-old girl's words, which sounded so sincere, had no response. I just took her into my arms and hugged her tightly. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.